Hi everyone. In this video, we'll look at how we can accomplish dependency injection in Springboot framework. Okay, so we already saw how we can accomplish dependency injection, normally in Java. In this video, we'll look at dependency injection with respect to Springboot. Okay, so I think we have already reached a point where we are able to create a very basic RESTful API, a GET API with Spring Boot project. Now, in that same project, what I'll do is I'll create a controller repository, controller service and repository combination, which is the general flow when we are trying to do, you know, create, update, delete, or read operations with REST that, the endpoint enters a controller. uh, it goes to the logic layer, which we call as the service layer, and then it goes to the repository layer, which we call as a which is more or less very near to the database. Okay, so which interacts with our data source. Okay, so this is the general flow for doing these operations in Spring Boot. Okay, so let me quickly go ahead and create first of all one Java class known as user, or yeah, let's go ahead and do this for a user only. Okay, so I'll have a user controller. Uh, since we are creating RESTful APIs, I'm giving at the rate REST controller, which we already saw in our last video. And uh, um, let's come back to this class, once we have created other classes. So I'll create a user repository class or a class, which is uh, more towards the data side of things. We are moving towards the data side of things. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll sorry, I'll annotate this with repository. Okay. And what I'm going to do is, and by the way, at the rate repository means that we are somewhere we are doing something with respect to our data source that is database related. Okay. So let me actually create a function get user by ID. Okay, and we just return user of string. It's going to be integer user ID. This is what we are going to return. Okay. Now, and as I mentioned, there is a middle layer generally, which is known as the service layer. We uh, create a class known as user service and annotate this with the service annotation, which means that this particular class would contain methods which would more or less do the business logic side of things. And from service, we then try to either insert data into the database, get the data, delete, or update. Okay, so from service, we try to call functions inside our repository class. Okay, so that's the flow: controller to service, service to repository. Okay, now how do we call a function inside repository class? Okay, what is the way? So the best way here is to use auto-wired annotation and inject your repository class at runtime. Okay, So it happens like this. So uh, you have your user repository, user repository, then function I'm defining inside the service class, again returns a string, get user, okay, and calls the function inside the user repository class. Okay, and obviously it expects an integer ID. So we are just providing the parameter there, okay, because get user by ID as we mentioned, uh, uh, as we mentioned, uh, expects a string parameter, expects a user ID integer parameter. Okay, so in this way we have injected user repository bean into user service class, and then and then at runtime user repository bean is then used to call its function. Okay, very similar thing we can do now in controller. Let me quickly copy paste that. Obviously, we will change uh, the classes used. Here it would be search service. Okay, I'm using the user service um, object to call the function inside the user service class, and obviously user ID goes as a parameter. Okay. And as we remember from our hello controller, we need to give the mapping annotation. Okay. And uh, I think for now we can basically just have a slash, and with the slash we can also have path variable. Right. Okay. So basically, get I will learn about this particular thing by mistake. I put uh, near the get it comes in as a function parameter. Okay, so basically it would try to uh, grab the ID you are sending as a parameter. Okay, so it happens like this. Okay, so whatever is coming inside this, so this gets replaced with the actual value. Okay, so it would be something like slash users slash 123. 123 becomes that ID, which is then used here. Okay, so and one last thing, this REST controller it give this inside another annotation known as request mapping, which basically controls the entry point for that controller. So idea is, let's say you are creating a course application which contains your user related entities, user controller, user service, user repository, and then you could have a course controller, course repository, and course service. So entry point of user and controller could be different. In your APIs, you may define your APIs for users with root slash users slash whatever it is. And for course, it may be root slash course slash course ID, whatever it is. So uh, with REST controller on that controller class, you can also give the request mapping, which actually makes it different from the other controllers. Okay? In the way the API, so when you give request mapping like this, you know, it identifies that, okay, if call is coming with root slash users, it has to call the user controller and not the hello controller or any other controller. Okay. So in this way, you can customize or differentiate between different entry points for your different APIs. Okay. Hope it is clear. So just to recap, we have a user controller which basically takes in um, uh, uh, user ID. Okay. So in the request in the user control, we are trying to get the user with the help of the user ID. Okay. And so for that, we wanted to make use of the user service function. For that, we have done this auto-wired. We have used the auto-wired annotation to inject user service into the user controller. Okay. And in the user service, we are then injecting user repository to call the user repository function. And you know, in generally at this place you try to get data from the database, but for simplicity, since we are only talking about annotation here and in general dependency injection in Spring Boot, so I'm making this program a little simpler. Okay, so let's quickly run this program or run this application and see for ourselves if this particular endpoint is working. Okay. So it has started on 8080. Let's quickly go to localhost 8080 slash users, which becomes our entry point. I'm giving user ID as 102. Let me, so it basically comes up with uh, user 102 only. So whatever it has been able to grab the integer which we provided in the param as a uh, parameter in the URL, and then returned us this string. So basically it is able to call the controller function, controller to service and service to repository, and then return it with user prefixed. Okay, which means our dependency injection, whatever we try to do with AutoWired worked, and our flow also worked. Hope it gives you some idea about the flow of APIs in Spring Boot, how we can structure the APIs. Very basic example, but in general, entities we you know, design in such way only. When we move towards database, then we will have a DAO as well, where we will try to map. For example, for user, we will have a user entity which would be mapped to the user table, okay, which is currently missing in this program, but that is for our future videos. So hope this video was informative, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Hope you like the video. Uh, for the code, link is there in the description. And if you need any help in building large scale software solutions or AI automation solutions, you can get on a quick consultation call. Again, link is there in the description. So until next time, uh, like, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.